Greetings, Mark Rang here, publisher of the Conway Daily Sun, and my guest today is former Senator Scott Brown and Ambassador Scott Brown. Scott, how are you?
I'm well, and it's great to see you. It's been, what, 10 years, I think?
10 years. You haven't aged a bit.
You haven't either. I just said that when you're walking down the stairs. It's great to be back. Thank you.
It's nice to be a little older, you know, because we never change.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, there's sometimes I wake up, I'm like, okay. The other day I woke up and in the center of my back, that muscle under your shoulder blades, I couldn't move my arm. I'm like, where did that come from? You know, just from sleeping. So yeah, it gets a little harder, but you know, the alternative is not as good.
So you've had, I mean, obviously you've had an incredible career. You're a senator in Massachusetts, you're ambassador to New Zealand and Samoa, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if many people know where actual Samoa is, but, and you know, we've got a photo of you when you have a rock band. Scott Brown and the Diplomats.
Yeah, I had a band in New Zealand. I used rock and roll diplomacy. Yeah, there you go.
Now this is up at Whitney's here.
Yeah, that was so fun. Yeah. We used rock and roll diplomacy to break down barriers in New Zealand, left of center country. You know, you can agree on food, family, sports, and music. Throw in politics, it gets a little interesting. So actually, in my residence in Wellington, I had 41 rock and roll displays. So you would walk in the official residence, you know, you have the official welcoming area, you have the official dining room, but then you go throughout the house and it was like Hard Rock Cafe. I had the original drum kit from Kiss with the words written on the drum head that Eric Singer lent me, you know, Cheap Trick, Joan Jett, you know, we had everybody, because what does America export? Well, everybody knows music. Everybody knows Elvis Presley, Frank Sinatra, Chubby Checker. You know, so we use that to basically build bridges, and it really, really worked.
Do you have a theme song? If
You
you win the U.S. Senate, you're gonna.
Yeah, you know, listen, I love all classic rock. We do stuff from the Monkees, all the, you know, Nancy Sinatra, all the way up to the present day. No, there's no theme songs. I just love music. I played last night. I'm going to go tonight and play again.
Yeah, that's great. And so you know, they always say experience is knowledge, right? And I think Churchill said something like, if you're not a liberal when you're young, you're not a liberal, you don't have a heart, and if you're older and you're not a conservative, you don't have a brain, right, or something like that. Yeah. So I mean, all you've done. I mean, have your views in general, have your world views changed?
Well, I think people need to understand my history. I mean, I was born at the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard. My dad was at Pease. My mom was in Portsmouth, got married. I lived in Portsmouth for the first 3 years of my life. My family goes back to 1717 in Newington. I'm a son of the American Revolution out of Newington. So when people say, you're not from here, I said, well, actually I am. Gene's from Missouri, Maggie and John Lynch are from Massachusetts. So, you know, when you talk about roots, those roots in New Hampshire, especially with my entire family being here, that conservative, almost Victorian, you know, save every penny, you know, work really hard, hunker down and you know, pull your pants up and your bootstraps up and get the job done, is very similar, quite frankly, to the attitude in New Zealand. You know, if you can't do anything, you get some number 9 wire and some duct tape and you go fix it and figure it out. So the fact that my parents were married and divorced 4 times each, and my mom was on welfare, and a lot of abuse. I mean, those original experiences, as you said, have made me realize that people are hurting. People need help. My mom was on welfare, so obviously I'm going to help people who are in need. You know, I was abused, so I'm obviously going to help people who need those services. And as I get older and have 4 grandchildren, a lot of people say, why are you running? You know, you're a former assessor, selectman, state rep, state senator, U.S. senator, U.S. ambassador, 39 years in the military, you have a rock band, you have a successful life. Why are you doing this?
You're like the Renaissance man.
Well, I'm doing it because thank you, I'm concerned about the direction of our country.
All right.
Really, I look at, and you referenced it earlier when we were just chatting, you know, we have people who change when they go to D.C. I didn't change. I was always the problem solver, and I was the most bipartisan guy for 3 years. We have people in our federal delegation that don't represent, I believe, our values here and the things that we believe in. You know, less regulations, you know, lower taxes, secure borders, you know, those types of things. So I felt compelled to run, quite honestly. I'm concerned about the direction of our country.
All right, so let's talk about some issues. I mean, Iran is the big one right
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
So, and even Secretary Hegseth, I just happened to hear him on the way in.
I did too.
Yeah, and you know, he said a couple things that were interesting. One is he said that, you know, that last summer we obliterated their capacity to enrich uranium. And so, in your opinion, why are we there?
Well, I'll tell you what, I've been asked that question a lot. I went to the Free State Project 3-day event, and, you know.
PorcFest?
Yes, it wasn't PorcFest, it was their Liberty Project. It was in Concord, and I was the only one there speaking. I didn't avoid it. I went and spoke to people who are also citizens in New Hampshire, and that was their main issue.
Yep.
You know, why are we there? And for somebody who served in the military, I've been to Afghanistan, Pakistan, Israel, Dubai, Jordan, Kazakhstan. I've worked with ambassadors from that region. I know that region really, really well. And I know Ambassador Huckabee really, really well. And you say, why are we there? Well, you have to look back in history. And I remember, and I know you remember, when they took over our embassy, when they skinned and killed William Buckley, you know, who was allegedly with the CIA, when they bombed our barracks and killed, I think it's 234 Marines. Have they been exporting terrorism around the region and the world, the Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, funding terrorism, hurting, killing, and maiming our citizens, and keeping that region unstable to the point where our allies and friends in that region haven't really been able to use and reach their potential, and they use oil and they use their threats of violence and nuclear weapon potentially to destabilize and threaten that region, the big bully in the region. Well, now they've been neutralized, and they're continuing to be demoralized and neutralized. So my question when this was happening is, number one, why are we doing it?
Did you know it was going to happen?
No.
Like nobody knew. It was
Yeah,
gonna,
yeah, of course you knew, because we were
Well, they were
sending
sending all the
we're
Armada.
sending an armada, and I appreciate the fact that they sat down with them and said, okay, here's what we want. And they came to the table and said, listen, we have enough nuclear material to make 11 bombs, so, you know, we're going to continue to, and they were belligerent about it. And so my question to anyone listening is, at what point do we just say, we as a world, and we as the Abraham Accords people who are there and others in that region say, okay, enough? At what point is that? And I think that point was reached. Do I want a long war? Absolutely not. Do I want any war? Absolutely not. But at what point do you say enough? And I think we've reached that point, and I'm hopeful that, you know, they're still going after the surgical strikes, trying to make sure that they neutralize the capacity. Because what is Iran doing now? They're basically attacking their allies, the friends that they do business with, because, you know, they're upset. They're kind of flailing away. So I hope it ends. I support it as of right now, and
But Tulsi Gabbard, National Security, when she was at a hearing the other day, they asked her whether there was an imminent threat, and she kind of avoided it. I mean, she was a no forever wars type person,
Sure.
and she avoided it and said, well, that's a president's decision.
Well, it is.
And the president's decision is saying, I get out when I feel it in my bones.
Well,
I mean, that's a tough, for regular people to hear that.
I don't disagree with you, but I mean, listen, that's how he talks.
Right.
Do I agree with it all the time? No. But you look at a lot of the history, you look at the information, you look at and speak to our allies and friends in that area. You can't keep supporting terrorism. You just can't. So at what point do you say enough?
Okay, and that's a fair enough. And I think everybody would agree that, you know, it's a bad regime and they're terrorists and all that, and it's been managed for all these decades, right? But, you know, like John Bolton, who's the Secretary of Security Secretary under the first Trump administration, he had a piece in the Wall Street Journal, and he said, well, now that we have to stay there now. Like, now they're in, we got to stay, because now that now that the Iranians have closed the Strait of Hormuz, they know it's an effective weapon to do that, and so they've learned that it's a weapon, and they'll do it again. So that, to me, that totally makes sense, logical. It's like, uh-oh, does that mean we're heading down? Now we have to be there permanently, or not permanently, but in the classic Quagmire situation.
Yeah, listen, it's a very valid point, and I don't disagree with it.
So when does it stop then?
Well, that's the question du jour. That's the million-dollar question.
What's in your opinion?
I think it stops when we have our allies in that region recognize and join the Abraham Accord and actually, you know, work together to make sure it doesn't happen. I don't believe we should be the world's policeman, but I believe right now the efforts to make sure that strait stays open are real. They're targeting, you know, a lot of the missile and drone capacities in that region, and China, Russia, all these other countries, Japan, they want that oil to transfer through. So I believe that there'll be a world friends and foes getting together to keep that open.
The other thing that I thought was Hegseth said this morning that I thought was interesting, because I guess they're going to ask for like $200 billion, like a ton of money, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things he said, which is fair to say for sure, he says, well, the Biden administration, they were sending weapons to Ukraine, and we should be doing stuff in the America's interest. So how does like a regular person square it when, oh, we don't want to support Ukraine against one of our adversaries when we were doing it on the cheap, basically having the Ukrainians fight Russians, but then we're in the Middle East? Like,
yeah, listen, it's complicated. That's why, having served in the military, understanding those capacities, being on armed services, homeland, veterans, and small business. Yeah, great question. I listened to the same interview that you did, not only Tulsi, but obviously Secretary Hegseth. And yeah, wars are expensive. Conflicts are expensive.
But how do we choose between Ukraine and the Middle
Very
East?
gently. Very gently. You know, I think there's going to have to be, and I appreciate the president trying to come up with a solution, because when President Biden said, you know, a minor incursion, and when President Obama said, you know, I'm going to draw a red line in the sand with Syria, and when people saw the Afghanistan pullout, it gave them, emboldened them, I believe, the ability to go and do what they did in Ukraine. I appreciate the president's efforts to work with Russia. A lot of what you're seeing now with the oil and natural gas and isolating them, I think is ultimately going to work, but it's going to take time. You know, it took time to build up to this, and now it's going to take time to unwind it.
And then, and one more thing about Iran is that, you know, of course, the platforms that President Trump ran on, one was immigration, stop the border. He did that, check, right? Lowering prices, and we can talk about that in a minute. And then the other one was about ending forever wars. So now you have on the far right, Tucker Carlson and a whole bunch of those guys who are against it. Mm-hmm. So what do you say to that part of the conservative party, the conservative wing of the Republican Party, to say, hey, I know we promised no end of the forever wars, but here we are?
Well, I think, once again, I think history is important. During President Trump's first term, he stopped those wars. He got us out of these wars that were there and endless, number one. Number two, when you're looking at what he's done so far around the world trying to stop conflicts, I think he's done a very positive job in that respect. But once again, I come back to the same question, and this is something I think about regularly. At what point do we use our powers of good to make a difference in the world, to stop basically Iran getting a nuclear weapon and using it all around the world? And at what point do we stop them providing funds for all the Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and other entities to hurt, maim, and kill not only Americans, but other citizens who don't agree with their philosophy, that radical Islamic philosophy? So at what point do we do that? Do I want an endless war? Absolutely not. No, no. But do I think that we have an opportunity to make a statement and to show the world that Iran is no longer a threat, and to allow those people, wonderful people, I've been to Kuwait, I know that region, to give them a chance to thrive without the constant looking over your back of what's Iran going to do? What's Iran going to do? I think that's a positive thing.
Okay, we'll see what happens. I mean, it's
Amen.
a lot going on.
Let's knock on wood, everybody. Yeah, and can pray. I mean, I pray every night.
All right, well, good. Switching gears, Save America Act, right? That's the one the federal government wants, the Trump administration wants to basically federalize the elections. And, you know, the Constitution is pretty clear that it's up to the states. And some of these things, I mean, it's not determined yet, but so I guess my first question is that I could understand if the party out of power was trying to get control of the federal elections, but the fact that, you know, the Republicans control the House and the Senate and obviously President Trump, like, why? What is the purpose of this?
Well, listen, you know as well as I do that, you know, to show an ID at an election is important. To be a citizen is important.
We do that now, though.
We do it in New Hampshire. Yeah, absolutely. We have a very strong situation. They're still making it stronger. They're not allowing, hopefully, kids to show up with a school ID to vote. If they want to vote, they should go to their hometown, get an absentee ballot, and go vote.
And that's separate from this, though.
Well, it's the same but different, because we had a forum/debate last night with John sitting me and with all the congressional candidates, and this came up. And everybody there supported the SAVE Act. And as a matter of fact, Melissa Bailey, you know, felt a little bit insulted because, you know, she has done certain things, and she was able to go and do certain things because she's married, and all she had to do is provide the appropriate documentation. So my philosophy is, if anybody doesn't have those documents, then we as a state and as a country need to make sure we can provide those and help them at no cost to get those done. If they don't have a passport, they don't drive, then they should get a federal identification document or card at no expense to them, to make sure that we know who they are and that they are able to vote. I support the SAVE Act,
But the underlying principle, I assume the underlying principle is to say that our elections aren't without that are not
yeah,
that
it's
they
a
are
check and
corrupt.
balance. It's a
But-
check and balance.
So I guess I'm trying to get at what's the fundamental purpose of this. I mean, now our elections are. There's very little. There's no corruption, basically. I mean, Utah, I think, very conservative Utah, analyzed their elections for 2 years, and they found like 5 people who.
But once again, I don't want to quote what J.D. Vance, when he was talking to Martha Raddatz, saying, well, it's only a few housing projects that are taken over by Venezuelan gangs. It's only 5. Well, in other states, it's more. So why should there be any? I mean, what's the question? I mean, I remember recently getting on a plane, then I had to go to the bank, and I showed my ID 4 times. The people know that I'm a U.S. citizen. They know I have a valid identification, and there's no mechanism for fraud. I'm actually a little bit surprised. We are continuously, making sure that we don't provide proper documentation to go vote. And once again, New Hampshire, yeah,
It's against the law. You have to be an American citizen to vote.
and there's been people caught, even in New Hampshire.
Yeah, like
double
2.
voting.
Like 2.
But once again, it's 2.
But it's always
too many.
But Senator, isn't it always a balance? I mean, one of the dangers is federalizing. Do we want, whether it's Republicans or Democrats, do we want the federal government having all that voting information? As you know, Trump asked Governor Ayotte for some voting roll information, and she refused to give it. I mean, that's one of the dangers. And the other thing is that they're going to limit mail-in ballots. So a lot of people, that's going to. It seems like it's going to suppress voting. How can it not be? If you move to another state and you have to re-register, and then you need a birth certificate. I mean, a lot of people don't have passports, and a birth, you're just going to say, I'm not going to bother to vote.
Well, once again, if you want to vote and you want to solve the problem, you get it done. I mean, we're not stupid. We have the ability to step outside our comfort zone and actually go. When you're filing for your Social Security, you got to provide those things. When you're filing, and going into the hospital, you have to show certain documentation. When you're going to vote, you should be able to provide certain documentation.
Okay, fair enough. So do you think one last question about that, do you think the 220 election was stolen?
No.
Okay. So you disagree with President Trump on that one?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Health insurance. Yep. So, I mean, it's kind of like on the back burner now with what's going on in Iran, but right now the ACA subsidies are gone, right? The extended subsidies, and people are paying more for their premiums. Should Congress extend those premiums at least to a certain point until other reforms are in, or what's your view on health insurance and how to
Well, once again,
approach it?
you know my history. I was the guy that stopped the Democrat supermajority when Kennedy died. And I was against Obamacare. I thought it was a mess, and we see now that it actually is. It's not expensive. It's not affordable. You can't keep your doctors. You can't keep your insurances. It's a whole lot of things. So you recall Romney Care.
Yeah, in Massachusetts.
It passed 198 to 2, if my memory serves me, in terms of the legislature. I supported that. You know why? Because it gave you the Cadillac plans all the way down to the fully subsidized Commonwealth care for people who had no insurance. It gave you choice. It gave you ability. It gave you the ability to negotiate, a la carte plans to suit you as an individual. This one size fits all, it completely misled us on a whole host of things. So let's start with this. Do I think everybody deserves some form of insurance? Absolutely. Absolutely, positively. And if they can't afford it, then we should make an effort to make sure they get it at no cost to them if they can't afford it.
Well, that's what Obamacare did, though.
No, it didn't. It did, but it also, so did Romney Care. But it also took away everybody else's abilities to do those things that I just referenced as were the case in Romney Care. But here's the problem. I mean, let's cut to the chase. The administrative costs with health care represent about 40 to 50%.
You're talking about insurance companies.
I'm talking about the cost of insurance. So insurance companies, yes. So administrative costs are out of control. There's no transparency. You don't know what you're getting and how much it costs. So what do I think we should be doing? I think you should have the ability to go across state lines and get insurance.
That's up to states to do that, though.
I don't disagree, but they need the guidance, I believe, from the federal government to make sure that we push them to do that, to have that ability, because we need to make sure we have competition, number one. We have to make sure that there's transparency. So when I go into the doctor to get a knee replacement, I can go to A versus B and understand that I'm getting a better deal here. Why can't I do that? There's no transparency. There's no choice. The administrative costs, as I said, represent about 40 to 50% of the costs. So the overhead, the multiplication, the duplication is out of control. The ability to get drugs at no cost across in different countries, providing they're safe and secure. There's a lot of things that we can do, and quite frankly, I did it when I was a senator in Massachusetts, and I look forward to being part of the solution instead of just saying no, 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 and basically giving and continually subsidizing, because that was meant to be a 3-year subsidy.
Right, ended last year.
3 years,
Yeah.
okay? They've known for here's the problem with DC, everybody listening, okay? The problem with DC is as you see right now, is they know it's 3 years. And what do? Nothing. Nothing until a month before. And then it's too late. So I want to go down there, as I did with the post office. We had a solution. Right now the post office is running a $9 billion a year deficit. I worked in a bipartisan manner to have a solution, and we had it. And Harry Reid would not put it forward because I was part of it, and it would have helped me in my reelection. That's how petty they are. So I want to go down there and be part of the solution and not be no, 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 no.
But with the health care, I mean, the Democrats didn't do anything about the Obamacare extensions because they just want free health care. I mean, period. Like universal health care, or whatever you want to call it. But the Republicans, you guys have been at it.
I don't disagree.
I mean, Trump 8 years ago.
I don't disagree. That's why I want to go down there and be part of the solution.
Now, you're a young guy. I'm older than
66. I don't know how young that is.
Okay,
so.
well, you're younger than me, so you must be on Medicare. I won't ask that.
Yes, I am. I actually just, yes, and I just got a notice yesterday that I'm eligible for Social Security. So I'm like, what?
That's always scary. I'm with you on that one. But Medicare, so this is the extreme version. Medicare works. I mean, anybody's on Medicare, including me, it just works. And we know when rural hospitals, the Medicare, Medicaid reimbursement doesn't cover their costs, so they basically just milk it out of the insurance companies. Like, why can't there be a public option for Medicare when it works so well? And then the government, if the Republicans now are about government control, like with the elections and so forth, I mean, let the government determine what the reimbursement rate is, and if they want to ration it by not having a full reimbursement rate, so be it. And get the private companies, insurance companies, out of it.
Well, I'm not a big fan of government control. We look at the post office.
Yeah.
We look at healthcare, Obamacare. We look at the Veterans Administration and some of the problems there. I believe that states have a better ability to make their own determination.
Except for elections.
Well, I don't think that I have to respectfully disagree. Requiring a license to vote and evidence of citizenship, I don't believe is the same thing.
I won't go
respectfully, I just don't. And once again, we're going to still talk about the Celtics and and the Bruins and the Red Sox and skiing, because that's who I am. But right now, there's none of that going on. It's either you're far left and you hate the right, or you're far right and you hate the left. There's nobody like me, respectfully, who can go down there and find common ground. And I'll give you an example. There's not a thing that I agree with Bernie Sanders. Nothing. And I remember being on Fox, and I say, Bernie Sanders, I don't agree with anything he believes in. But I respect the fact that he believes what he believes, and he means it. He means it, and I respect the hell out of that. Don't you know, I'm going to my hearing to be an ambassador, and he's running down the hall, he's running down the hall, and he says, Scott Brown, I don't agree with anything you agree with. I don't agree with anything. I don't believe anything you believe in, but I respect the fact that you believe it and you have my vote.
Nice.
So that's who I am.
Yep.
And we don't have people like that. Now, when you talk about the rural the rural hospitals and healthcare centers. In the big beautiful bill, there was $100 million a year for 5 years, $500 million that would come to our rural health centers, and our entire delegation voted against it. There's $200 million in there for Portsmouth Naval Shipyard. They voted against that. No tax on tips, overtime, a break on your Social Security, all against that. The accelerated appreciation for businesses, against that. So there's got to be a mechanism so we can try to find solutions. So if you want a solutions candidate, I'm your guy. If you look at our entire delegation, they vote with their party 99+ % of the time, all the time. If you want somebody who's a problem solver and keep an open mind, it's me. It always has been. And that's evidenced by the fact for 3 years I was one of the most bipartisan senators finding solutions. Remember, my first 6 months when I was there, I'm the guy that passed the insider trading bill. The second I left, they weakened it. Now they're saying, oh, we got to pass it. Well, no kidding. I did it. And then our delegation, no one in this delegation stopped it. And that's wrong. And that's why I'm running. It's one of the reasons I'm running.
Speaking of the economy, what are your priorities? I mean, obviously it's another thing. And, you know, my personal opinion is that presidents really don't have a whole lot of control over the economy. It goes up and down, there are cycles, blah, blah, blah. They take credit for it when it's good. They try to avoid it when it goes south. Yeah. But, you know, Trump did promise he was going to work on lowering prices. Inflation hasn't lowered. I mean, of course, we got the gas prices now, which is sort of a separate thing, but we got the tariffs, which has added. Stock market's not doing so well. Deficit is still going. I mean, Democrats never have cared about the deficits, but it seems like the Republicans, they care about it when the Democrats are in, but then when they get in office, they don't care about it either. How big a deal is a deficit to you?
I think I know it's my number one issue. The debt and deficit are my number one issues. I support a balanced budget like we have in our states and we have in our homes. I support a line item veto. I don't care what party's in charge, because we need to do something, because I believe we're at a fiscal cliff. When I was down there, it was $9 trillion national debt, and now it's what, 40 trillion almost? That's unacceptable. We can't sustain that. And having 4 grandchildren, it bothers me greatly. When you come to the economy, I mean, I thought what President Biden did on the border was criminal. I did. Yep. To let people in here, you know, to pick up the pieces, and you said it yourself. President Trump, check, he stopped the border. And that's great. That's a great thing. As a result of that, and a lot of the things that are happening now, you're finding that there's stability and certainty on who's here, and now we have to respectfully, I believe, get the criminal illegals out of here who are hurting, killing, and maiming our citizens. I believe that wholeheartedly. But when you're talking about fixing something, he's been there for a little over a year. I remember within a week, Chuck Schumer was talking about egg prices. It's like, dude, he's only been in a week. Come on, let's be realistic. And I think the average voter understands that, because when I go to Market Basket, and I do all the shopping, I have for an entire 39 years of marriage, I go to Market Basket in Portsmouth. I know that what eggs were when I got back from being an ambassador under the previous administration. I know what they are now, $1.88 for a dozen. Okay, and I know that gas was coming down dramatically until what we just saw, and it's still respectfully lower than when President Biden was in charge. And affordability and costs are the local issue. I'm talking the first one with the debt and deficit. It's a larger issue. Is the number one issue affordability, cost of goods, and I believe we can do more. And a lot of that comes from, listen, high cost of energy, especially in New Hampshire. It's unacceptable that we don't have the ability to have a natural pipeline. As a federal official, I would put pressure on Massachusetts and whoever's holding this up to make sure that we can get that. I support another, the stackable nuclear energy sources at Seabrook, because it's already permitted. There are pads for it already. We have to find a mechanism to step back from our dependence on foreign fuels.
Well, we're obviously a net exporter of fossil fuels now, yes, which is why we're not totally panicked about what's going on.
Yeah, we're the highest producer.
Sure.
We're doing great things, but that wasn't always the case. So there are a lot of things that I think about every single day. And if you talk about the average kitchen table issues, it's the things that we talked about previously when we were talking, and the things that are happening right now. How does somebody who's on a fixed income pay their bills? Right? let's be real. That's
Right.
People don't really care about the debt deficit. They care, but it's not. They don't quite get it.
That's why nobody cares
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, there's a war in Iran. Yeah, I get it. I understand what we're trying. But I have $1,000 in my checking and savings account. If my car goes south and my heating system fails, I'm screwed. Those are the things that I want to work on. Those are the issues that I feel are most important.
But not to go back to the Iran issue, but you brought that up. And gas is always, and people have said, politicians have said, look, don't tell me about the inflation rate, just tell me what the gas price is, right? Well, gas is going up.
Yeah.
I mean, is there a threshold that is going to be too much politically for the administration to continue this war? Or what do you, $5 a gallon, if it goes there.
I wish I had a crystal ball.
Yeah.
But once again, I go back to our original conversation about at what point do you say enough? Is that short-term pain at the pump worth getting rid of the bully in the region and stopping a potential nuclear threat, especially with the capacities that they were delivering? So that's what I ask myself. And I personally am willing to take that short-term sacrifice to make sure that we and the world are safer in the long run.
Fair enough. Now, you're talking about insider trading, and I noticed on your website that you had Mark Wayne Mullen as one of your endorsers, right?
Yeah.
And so he's up for taking Kristi Noem's place, and he had a raucous hearing yesterday. If you heard that one, Rand Paul.
He's a character. I'll tell you.
He is a character, and he's a character, and it was a great theater to watch Rand Paul go after him because they have a personal feud, and once you start talking about 1856, where Charles Sumner gets beaten by his cane.
I remember. I know. Yeah, the duels.
I know. So, but anyway, it gets back to the insider trading question, and sort of a larger question. I think most people think, we know politicians personally. I like them. I like you. I like everybody comes in, they're all smart and bright, but everybody thinks they're basically corrupt, right? They get in the Senate, they get in Congress, they come out, they go in with $100, they come out with $1 million.
It's more than that, but yeah.
It's more than that. But, and we know that, and everybody's done it both sides, but it seems a little extreme. I know the Wall Street Journal and the Financial Times have estimated that Trump has enriched his family by $3 to $5 billion in a year, with the deals he's made. And then your endorser Mullen, when he's a senator, and he went in like 6 years ago, and he's estimated worth like $2 to $3 million, and now his worth is like $50 million, and he's accused of basically buying Chevron stock 5 days before we knocked off Venezuela. What do you think about that? The perception, never mind the actual numbers, but the perception of it is not so good.
Yeah, and it's a great question, and that's why I actually enjoy coming and speaking with you, because you're asking like real normal questions. Yeah, I get pissed off when I hear that, and that's why I passed the insider trading bill. And had those efforts been in place, a lot of these things wouldn't happen. And when you say insider trading, I think it's important for our listeners and viewers to understand what that means. So let's just say hypothetically, I was on Armed Services. I was a ranking member on one of the subcommittees. I was on Homeland Security. Let's just say, like you just said, I'm on Armed Services, and we have the secret briefings and the secret, the soundproof areas. We have those briefings, and they say, we begin bombing in 5 days. Well, what am I going to do then as a senator? I'm going to go buy some Raytheon stock. I'm going to go buy this stock, deal with war and supply issues. That's insider trading, taking that personal information days before or weeks before and then going in and profiting by it. I don't support that. I've never done it. And I will not do it. And when I get back there, I want to make sure that we have the strongest, most, with punishments, effort to stop that stuff. And I believe that when you become an elected official, you should put that stuff in a blind trust. Now, I've been saving since I was 17 years old. I have stocks and bonds that I've had since my grandfather gave them to me. All right. I am willing to put those things in trust so I don't have any access to it. I'll have somebody who's a qualified person like you or a certified planner to do that.
Can I do that for you?
Yeah. Just I'm not going to. I'll hold you harmless, not. But you know what I mean. What's the big deal?
Right. It doesn't. It just looks. Not only is it
looks,
bad,
looks
but it
crappy.
looks bad.
It's wrong. So we're crystal clear. I'm glad we agree on this.
No,
okay?
I'm not. Hey, I don't disagree with you. I only ask the question.
No, we agree on this.
Yeah.
Next.
So politics. So one is that, I mean, President Trump obviously appointed you as ambassador,
Yep.
and he's not endorsing you. What happened?
Well, I've
He's
always,
endorsing Sununu.
Yeah. Listen, first of all, I voted for the president 3 times. I was his ambassador to New Zealand. I was one of the first mainstream people to endorse him when he ran in the first time. And I always told him, I said, sir, I don't have a lot of money, but I will always be honest with you. I will tell you what I think and why, and you can take it or leave it. He said, great, I need people like you. Okay, well, I speak my mind. I call balls and strikes. And I believe that any president or any head of a corporation or any family member who's the head of the household needs to hear outside voices to make sure that they are getting the true story. And I have spoken publicly on Fox and on all my TV shows about things I feel could be done differently. And I, for example, when they went and got Maduro, I thought that was great. But I don't think we should be running Venezuela. Okay.
Well, what was it? I mean, was there
I don't
one
know.
thing that you said?
Listen, I don't.
I mean, is it something that you said, or I mean, obviously, Sununu's their dynasty in New Hampshire, or is it just power politics?
Well, see, we don't need dynasties. We don't need monarchies. We're celebrating our 250th anniversary. Whether it's the Shaheens, the Sununus, the Clintons, the Bushes. I'm done with that, and so are New Hampshire people. I don't know. We both tried to get it, but what I do know is, President's at about 39% approval rating in New Hampshire, and that the MAGA base have been supporting me. The grassroots will continue to support me regardless. They're actually upset. All the work they did for the president and the MAGA movement, they're pissed, and they're not going to support John. With regard to that endorsement, don't forget he was the original Never Trumper. He was with Kasich, he was with Nikki, and then he wrote an op-ed calling Trump a loser. And he still got the endorsement. So the question that people are asking me, like you just said, how did it happen? Exactly. What did he do to sell his soul to get that? Because I'm not willing to do that. I'm always going to be honest and speak my mind. I guarantee you, and what it's done is actually opened up a lane with the independents to say, you really are the independent guy. You are the guy that calls balls and strikes. And it's really been beneficial to me.
Well, it's interesting, and it kind of plays into, and Chris Pappas, who would be your opponent in the general election, he's running for the Senate too. He said when the endorsement came down for Sununu, he put out this tweet or something that says, I'm Chris Pappas and I support this message.
Yeah, I know.
As if like good luck.
Yeah.
Right. So I guess it can work for you.
Yeah. Listen, John didn't put it on his website. He's not showcasing it. And when we just did a forum at Sandown, and I thought it was great. There was about 200 people there, and he barely mentions it because he really doesn't want it. Because New Hampshire, the biggest block of voters here are the independents. And respectfully, while they may like what the president's doing on A, B, C, and D, they don't like him. And the fact that I now don't owe anybody anything, just like in 2010, and this race feels like 2010. Remember, I was down 41 points. I won by 7. I stopped the Democrat supermajority. I think, and I felt this since the day I announced, that New Hampshire will determine who controls the Senate. There's no doubt in my mind. And to think that Chris Pappas will do it when he's 100% with his party, doesn't have a strong record of accomplishments, or John Sununu, who basically sold out his independent streak, I think I'm the better qualified person.
So, I mean, on the major issues, John Sununu would say pretty much the same thing as you. I mean, he supports Iran, some of the fixes for health care. I mean, just generally Republicans, it's expected. So besides balls and strikes, what is the difference between you and John, besides that you can play guitar?
Well, the first that I'm the only person, John and I have grandchildren. I think that matters. I think that matters a lot because we understand that generation is going to have some real issues if we don't do it. I'm the only one with any military experience. Chris and John. I did almost 40 years. I retired as a colonel out of the last 4 at the Pentagon, working with the Joint Chiefs, so I understand that stuff. I'm the only person with any international experience as an ambassador for almost 4 years, dealing with other ambassadors, doing trade deals, dealing with the Christchurch massacre and other tragedies. So if you want to know what the difference is, the large difference is that I started from nothing. And here I am. You said it yourself. You're very accomplished, and I appreciate that. It doesn't come without bumps and bruises. John and Chris were born on third base, and they think they got triples. They're very wealthy. You look at John's financial statement, he's millionaire, 4 times, 10 times over. That being said, I think, right now, I've given up all my jobs to run for this office. John is still working on boards, still working. He's working on Boston Scientific, where he makes $400,000 a year. Boston Scientific exports our jobs out of the United States to China. And the fact that he was working with the World Economic Forum, I'm not a globalist. When he did the bank bailouts, he worked for the very same banks that he bailed out, making millions and millions of dollars. I don't and didn't do that. So when you're talking about why are the grassroots and others supporting me, because they look at him and they say, by the way, where's he been for 20 years? What has he done to help our party? I've been helping the party since I wrapped up my ambassadorship and before, and will continue regardless of what happens. But more importantly, there's an opportunity here to send somebody who, basically is from here, who cares deeply about our state, and is open-minded and will be a problem solver and don't owe anybody anything. I think that's critically important. So those are the large differences.
I don't know if you brought it up or someone asked you on a TV interview, but they brought up that John Sununu's name was floating around in the Epstein files. Is that fair to bring it up?
I said I'm not bringing it up. The question I've asked, though, is did he meet him? And did he meet him at Davos when he was on the World Economic Forum? Did he meet him when he was dealing with the big banks? Because Epstein obviously was in finance. Did he meet him? If he did, what did he talk about? Where did he meet him? And that's up to him to ask. And I've asked the very same questions. I guess the Democrats are driving around with a truck with something about Epstein, and they asked me, do I have anything to do with it? I said, first of all, I wouldn't waste my money. No, I haven't done anything about it. But I'm not in the Epstein files. I didn't tell good stories. People don't hate my stories, quite frankly. So that's an issue that the voters are going to have to decide.
All right. And lastly, if you get through the primary, it's Chris Pappas. So he always prides himself on being bipartisan. I think he votes mostly Democrat.
No, it's 99.2% of the time. So yes, it is Chris Pappas. And listen, I think he's a nice man. I don't believe in men and boys and women and girls sports, open borders, sanctuary cities. I don't believe in more taxation, more regulations. And I know what he does every time because I've been watching it. He read last night, he says, I'm going to file a bill on this because I care about small businesses. Well, what have you been doing for the last 7 years? What bill have you passed? Why is it when always he's running for re-election, he files a bill? The bills aren't going anywhere. They're not. He's doing press releases. And it reminds me a lot about China. When I was the ambassador in New Zealand and Samoa, Cook, Niue, in our interest in Antarctica, China would show up, they'd build a soccer stadium, a rugby stadium. It wouldn't be up to architectural codes. It wouldn't be safe and secure. It would fall apart in 4 or 5 years. And they go in and they do the smoke and mirrors, the pictures and the things and the ribbon cutting, and then they leave. That's what Chris Pappas does. He goes in during election periods and he does all these fancy things. I'm bipartisan, he's not bipartisan. He's not. I'm bipartisan because there's a true and accurate record on it of showing how to solve problems, whether it's insider trading or many other things. He's with his party 99% of the time. He hasn't supported the president on one thing, and you can't tell me we can't find $1 to save. You can't tell me that getting rid of a nuclear threat in Iran is not a good thing. Saying, oh, we need congressional authority. Obama didn't have it when he dropped 30,000 rockets and missiles, and when he took bin Laden. Kennedy didn't do it in the Bay of Pigs, but because it's President Trump, we need this and need that. I'm going to call the balls and strikes. I believe I'm more qualified, not only on life experiences, which matter, but more importantly, the military, the ambassadorial, on all the other things that we talked about.
Great. Thank you for coming in, Senator.
Thank you.
And we'll see you. We got a long way to go till
people can go to scottbrown.com, scottbrown.com, and get involved. And if you want me to come and speak and have John, I'm asking you right now to do a forum with John and me. And can I just wrap with this one?
Sure.
So when I was deciding to run, I met with Papa Sununu, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for the Sununu family. And he said, I said, sir, what should I do? He says, well, first thing you need to do is challenge Chris Pappas to go to every place like this, every TV, every radio station, everywhere to have a forum. Doesn't need to be a debate, but just point out what we're doing and why. He won't do it. So last night we had a forum, in Sandown, and I said, listen, we're the first in the nation primary state. You know, we are fighting for it. The Democrats don't. But don't you think that our state deserves to speak and learn about two senators who live in the same town? I ride my bike by his house like every day. We certainly former senators. I'm a former. We have. Doesn't it make sense to have the people of New Hampshire make that decision? And I said, John, I met with your father before I decided to run. You weren't in the race then, but he told me that I should go around with Chris Pappas. John, I'm asking you right now. Will you go around with me and do forums to every TV, radio station, cable station, every GOP, anywhere that they want us to let the people know where we stand? And he wouldn't even look at me. He's not going to do it. And I'm asking you to set that up because the people need to know where we stand. Period.
All
That's
right,
it.
well,
So-
Karen Numberger's off the screen. She's the puppet master.
Yes, she
So
is.
Karen, you get these guys together, we'll do it, all right? Okay.
Do it at the senior center where they don't allow these types
Oh
of
my
things
gosh,
anymore.
did you see that?
I did. I'm in your paper today. This is great. Yeah,
I know.
that's unbelievable. Who more needs to understand the issues that are affecting them in Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid than our seniors? And you don't want to have them come down? I think it's a disservice, quite honestly.
Well, David Smolin, you know, if you read the story, you saw it. I think you may regret that one.
Yeah.
Hey, we all make mistakes.
Yeah. So I'm happy to go there as
All
well.
right. Okay,
Good.
take care.
Good. Thanks.
Okay, take care.
Cheers.